Hey guys, welcome to Fix It Be Happy with another video. Today we won't have a repair video, but rather a do-it-yourself video. In this video I will teach you how to make your own cables for the Blissbox for play. This right here is the device I'm talking about, the Blissbox. The Blissbox is a multi-system controller adapter for the PC. You can see it has 4 HDMI ports. HDMI ports were chosen basically because they have many different pins to pin different cables out. And here you can see just a small selection of the cables which come with this device. You have DB9P for Atari or Sega controllers. You have PS2 and PS1, you have Dreamcast, you have the Nintendo GameCube, very important for me, and we have the cable this video is all about, the Nintendo 64 cable. So the problem I had is I was playing Nintendo 64 games with my friends, especially Mario Party, and we basically had 4 Nintendo 64 controllers available, but only 2 of these cables. It was a real shame that 2 people had to play with the Nintendo 64 controllers, or could play with the controllers, and the other 2 had to play with GameCube controllers. And what we will do is make ourselves new cables to be able to use the device to its fullest potential. If you want to find out more about the Blissbox, make sure to check out the link in the description to their website. I really recommend checking them out. So how all this works is you plug the adapter cable in, and it doesn't matter whether you plug the device in to the PC before or after you plug all this in. And then you can just plug this controller here in these cables, and all these cables are flush. They're very high quality built, and there you have your working Nintendo 64 controller on the PC. It's just easy as that. Sometimes you have to click this little reset button right here to make the Blissbox recognize the controller, but that's not the case every time. So let's continue to our soldering station, and there I will show you how to make your own cables. Here we are with my setup. Before we begin, I will show you what you need to do this process yourself. First of all, you need a Nintendo 64 extension cable to sacrifice for this mod. I have this 2-meter cable, and it has very nice connections, so I know this will be high quality when we are finished. Next, also very important, we have this do-it-yourself soldering kit for a HDMI connector. This is the hood of the connector, all the plastics which go around this, and here we have the connector itself. Here we can solder our Nintendo 64 extension cable on the different contacts. Yeah, that's basically it. You will see after this video you will be able to do this yourself. Don't be afraid to do a little soldering. This is very easy. Next we have soldering tin. You can choose any tin you like. I like this one from Stanol. Some soldering braid in case we fail with the soldering and have to remove soldering tin. Next, some shrinking tube. We need the shrinking tube because the hole in the hood of the HDMI connector, the diameter is larger than the cable diameter. So I want to make it look nice and clean, so we will use these shrinking tubes. Next we need a tool to remove the isolation From the cables we want to solder, I chose this cutter knife because I've always had problems with tools like these for the smaller cables. For larger cables it works quite fine, it removes the isolation and doesn't destroy the cable, but with such small cables, in my experience, the cables always get destroyed. The copper wire out of the cables are also ripped out, and you shorten your cable just unnecessarily. Next we will need some tweezers to destroy the part of the cable of the Nintendo 64 cable we don't need. You can do this in a more elegant way, but I don't care for the socket part of the connector part of the Nintendo 64 cable, so it's your choice whether you remove this without destroying or with destroying. Next I have this liquid flux to establish a nice connection while soldering. And lastly we have this how should I say, this little helper here to hold everything while we're soldering. So I will heat my soldering iron up and we'll see you in some minutes. So while the soldering iron is heating up, I will take the time to prepare the cables. First we have to prepare the Nintendo 64 extension cable and disassemble this connector, because we only need this socket right here. The non-destructive way would be just to use very thin screwdrivers and pull this out, but I want to throw this away anyway, and that is why I'm destroying this now. I hope you can see that. Yeah. So first, actually I think we can use the thin screwdrivers, or at least one, to make our way into the housing. So don't make sure to not hurt your hands. We just push the screwdriver in, break this apart. Yeah, now we remove this hood, and yeah, we can pull this apart later. Just for now we will leave it that way. So now we can see in here all the different cables which go into the I'll just zoom on a little. All the different cables which connect to the pins on the outside, and we have to know which pin corresponds to which color to later properly solder the cable. This one is very easy. We can just connect the cable to itself and write down the colors. So when we connect like this, I will turn this around. When we connect like this, we know that the left one is red, middle one is green, and right one is black. So I will just write that down, and what I'm doing now is preparing to match up my findings to the pinouts which are actually available on the internet for these cables, and the person who made these available is actually the inventor of the Blissbox himself on the forums. You can find a link to these pinouts in the description below. So now I will just name these pins 1, 2 and 3. and write down the colors I found: red, green and black. That's all we need. Of course you should make like a visual aid so you know which connection, which way around this is. Yeah, that's what we all need for now. I will pull the wires out and we can basically throw this away now. Next we have to prepare these wires here, and for this I will first remove this little plastic part. Be sure not to destroy the cables on the inside. That worked well. Yeah, these metal connectors, we don't need them anymore. Also throw these away. And this one is gone now too, and this one too. So the first thing that we want to do is, because we can't forget it, is take this part of the HDMI assembly and put this around the cable, because when you solder everything and forgot this, you have to desolder everything again. Next we put the shrinking tubes around the cable. I've chosen 5-6 millimeter diameter shrinking tubes, and a smaller one, I think it's 4. I think that should be good estimate to get a nice clean finish. The problem I have with these shrinking tubes is that they're very thin, so I have to stack multiple ones together. Yeah. So the next thing we need to do now is prepare these 3 wires, and first we need to know the proper wire length. For this we just take the HDMI connector and take a look at how it will be connected in the end. So here we can see that this one will be inserted into this metal housing, and after that there will be a metal housing again on top of it, and the cable should, I mean the large black insulation on the outside should start after this part to have a nice cable. So we will look how much of these wires we actually need. So this will go right here and here, this will be here. I think, I'm just guessing right now, like this would be okay. So we cut these off and prepare the wires. For the wire preparation, what you want to do is take your cutter or your tool, if you do it differently, and just gently pull it around the wire and pull at the cutting point with your fingernails, and the insulation will come right off. You do this with all 3 cables. So I think this cable is really easy to do, because you only need to solder 3 cables, and don't be afraid to do that. I think you can do it just fine. It's with these soldering kits, it's actually very easy to do with these HDMI soldering kits. You don't even have to destroy a cable, and it's cheaper like that. So now we prepared the 3 cables. And before we continue, we will apply some soldering tin onto these cables to make a better connection. First, what you want to do is take a little flux ready at your disposal and some soldering tin. First, I recommend just taking a little flux and applying it directly onto the tip of the soldering iron. That helps to make the soldering iron actually distribute the soldering tin properly on the object you want to solder on, in case the wires. So now we have a little soldering tin right here, and we'll just coat these wires. Yeah. So I readjusted the camera so that you can see it better, and I realized that the soldering tin does not stick to the wires very well. That's why I am coating them in a little soldering in some soldering flux too, and that really makes a difference. As you can see now, the soldering tin distributes evenly throughout on top of the wire. And the next thing we do is, as you can see, we have now these coated wires. The next thing we do is we solder these wires on top of the HDMI connector. So we take our little helper here and take the connector and let it hold this connector for the HDMI. So, how do we know where the wires have to go now? Here the pinouts come into play, which I mentioned earlier. Ulao on the Blissbox forums, the inventor of the Blissbox, released all the different pinouts for all kinds of different consoles, even for cables which are not available to buy, which I think is a really nice thing of him. Many thanks to you, Ulao, to providing these pinouts. And I will just show you the pinouts right now. On the left you can see the HDMI pinout, and on the right we will see the Nintendo 64 pinout, and there under the Nintendo 64 pinout you can see where on the HDMI connector the different cables have to go. As you can see, I still have my note here. I know that 1 is red, 2 is green and 3 is black. This is different from cable manufacturer to another cable manufacturer, so you have to make sure that you document the colors correctly. If you can't make it out by looking at the connector like we did previously, you can just measure it with your multimeter. So I know that the red one, we will start with the red one, has to go to the pin 17, and the pin 17 is on this side. More precisely, it's this connector right here. So one little problem which can be a problem, but doesn't have to, is that we have to solder two pins which are exactly neighboring each other, 17 and 15. What you can do now to make your job easier is just destroy the neighboring pins which we don't need, so you have room for the pins 17 and 15. Of course you shouldn't do that when you want to maybe reuse this HDMI connector another time. So what I will do is I will just go under this pin which I want to remove and pull it. As you can see, I was able to bend the pin, and like this we remove that. Be sure, when you want to do that, I advise you, be sure to be 100% certain that you destroy the right pins, otherwise you can throw this HDMI connector away. You don't want that. In the best case you can reuse it for another mod if you make a mistake, but don't risk anything. So now we have pin 17 and 17 and 15 here, and the third pin we need is the pin 1. If you're not sure which pin is which, just take a look at this HDMI connector from this direction and you can see. I'll just show you the image again. Here you can see it lines up with this picture, and ta-da, 19, 17, 15, 13, yada yada, 1. Yeah. So now we can start. I hope you can see that just fine. Yeah. As I just mentioned, we will start with a red cable, and before we do that we will apply some soldering flux onto this connector. This will make this job particularly easy, because on soldering kits like these they have very nice metal connectors already which soak up the tin basically. So first we apply tin on top of the 3 connectors. Be sure not to take too much, because they are exactly neighboring each other. Yeah. So now all that is left to do is soldering on these cables. Red goes to 17, so that's what we will do. Red goes to 17. As you can see, because I did the soldering already on this wire, the insulator melted a bit, and I don't want this insulator to be that far away from the cable. We don't want to risk shorting the cables here, which are right next to each other. So we will hold this like that and apply the heat of the soldering iron. Okay, now this is finished. Next, the green one. Green one is 2, goes to 1. Actually, I think we should make the black one first, because it goes to pin 15. That will be easier to do in the end, because we also have to figure out how these cables are oriented. Yeah, this one is a little long, the black one, but it's no problem. We will... Sorry for the unexpected cut, but the camera shut down by itself because the battery was depleted, so I'm very sorry for that. Basically what you what happened is that I soldered the black cable on there and actually made a short here because I had too much soldering tin there. Then I removed the red cable again, took a little less soldering tin and used the room on the sides we got because of the pins removed, and applied the wires again. And I also soldered on the green wire. So with this we have soldered on all the wires we need, and now we will go back to my computer and test this cable out before we assemble it finally. So we are now back now on my PC, and let's check the connection out. Here you can see how it's connected. Nintendo 64 cable to self-made extension cable. Extension cable goes to Blissbox. Here we can see the still open connector. Blissbox goes to my PC. And here you can see, oh, how should I show you that? I think this will do just fine. Here you can see that it works. Start, maybe C buttons work just fine. My camera is freaking out because of the zooming and focusing, whatever. You can see that it's working. Digital buttons also work. So this soldering job was successful. Let's go back to my table view and finish this cable up. So we are almost finished. The only thing left to do is closing up the HDMI connector. First, one advice: make sure not to pull on the cables during this process, because they are so thin you will rip those cables apart. The first step of assembling a connector like this is putting the plastic part into the metal part of the connector. For this we slide this in all the way through. Be sure not to put strain on the cables again. Next part is this little metal hood or housing has to go on top of this part. You can just press it on and it will be like very nicely fitting when it's a good connector, like this one. I'm actually very happy with this kind of connector. Again, if you want any recommendations for things to buy, I have links in my description. Now you can see, as I mentioned earlier, that this cable is too thin. Because of this, we have these shrinking tubes on here. We will push them through all around, all to here, because this part will pinch the cable and make sure that when you pull on the cable you don't pull on the actual connections, but on this part. And for this to hold well, it's better when the cable is thicker. What we need now is a hot air gun or a lighter. I have my hot air gun here, and I actually recommend an air gun because with a lighter it can actually happen that you burn the cable or melt it, and that's not what we want. So we apply heat, and as you can see it shrinks. Get the other parts out of the way, we don't want to melt. So that's not enough, and quite hot here. we will take the next one. Again, same procedure. As you can see, we can fit more shrinking tube in there. So I will fast forward now, because this will be the same thing over and over again. As you can see, I used all the shrinking tubes I prepared, and it turned out quite nicely. Now the diameter of the cable is okay. What we need to do now is pinch this metal part so that it holds the cable in place. For this, I recommend using proper tweezers, which are round, and I don't have these, so I will just use two of these tweezers right here to pinch this metal part. First, I'll bend it into the proper direction. Yeah, as you can see now, it's now like kind of circular, and what we want to do now is tweeze it with force and from both of the sides. Make sure not to pull on the cable, because you know what happens then. Okay, one more time, because it's not like very in place. Yeah. As you can see, I pull with a lot of force and nothing moves inside here. All the force goes right to the metal connector. Of course, it doesn't look perfect, but you won't see it when it's done. So we're almost finished, as you can see. Last step is putting this hood on and this one on. So we have to pay attention, because these are not the same. The one of the two is deeper. Yeah, on camera it looks like almost the same, but it isn't. Yeah, here one of these has this clippers and one doesn't, and one of these has, as you can see, two of these tiny plastic spots, and this has one. And here inside of this we have one, and here we have two. So we have to look out and turn it properly. So when the cable is like that, the plastic part with one of this plastic, like whatever it is, plastic points, has to be down. So we will use that on the side which is down. We will put this in place. Take our other side of the connector, and this is a little tedious sometimes, but depending on the quality of your housing, you'll be bored. This will be either difficult or easy. I opted for the cheaper ones. They are actually metal ones from the same manufacturer, but it was 10 euros difference, and I don't know, for me personally it wasn't worth it, because when this will be finished it will be as nice. Yeah, you heard it, the clicking sounds? That means it's in place. Check whether it's properly in there. Yeah, doesn't move. So now we will clip on this part of the hood. Yeah. Check whether it's long enough. Sometimes they can have a manufacturing error or something. Yeah, works just fine. And the last part is this connected back here. As you can see, we have a fully functioning 2 meters Nintendo 64 adapter cord for the Blissbox 4Play. If you liked the video, please be sure to click the like button. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section below. And if you want to see more of my videos, make sure to subscribe, and see you in the next video. This feels so great. Another successful project and another successfully released YouTube video for you to enjoy. All that's left to say is thank you for watching, and I hope I see you on the next video. All that's left to do is playing some classics.